Yes.
You know the lovely man who she said on your show?
Yes, Michael Webster.
Yeah, the lovely hunky spunky one, the hunky spunk.
He's wealthy in the hunky and the spunky stakes.
Oh, he's hunky and spunky. Do you know, you've got that Janet Street Porter mask.
Yes, his band Bait are using masks of Janet Street Porter to promote their musical wares.
Dukey.
Yes.
Do you think if I wore that mask that the lovely Marco would let me just find out just how hunky and spunky he really is?
Janet Street Porter is the key to many a man's heart, and Michael Webster has a big heart.
Oh, okay, Dukey. Well, I'm going to finish me singing here and I'm going to go see if I can find the lovely hunky spunky Marco. Oh, and I'm taking your Janet Street Porter mask with me.
Considering the purpose, go on then.
Okay then. It is an emergency! Sound of sirens so that everyone's up to speed. They're saying a drill, it's a matter of urgency. So let's run it on home. Bam, 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 bam!
It's the Dukey Radio Show. Hello. With me in the studio, Sylvia Silversmith.
Hello, everyone.
And Marsha MacDonald.
Yeah, peeps, what up?
You sound slightly more cheery than you did on the last instalment of the Dukey Radio Show, but only slightly.
Oh, was I grumpy?
A little bit.
Oh, was I?
You were suffering from caffeine withdrawal.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Dukey.
Yes.
I need a vacation.
Don't we all?
But, you know, what are you going to do? I'm less grumpy. I'm a little less grumpy.
That's good news.
Sylv's kind of taken over on the grumpy side.
So she's up, you're down.
Yeah.
You're up, she's down.
Yeah. Dukey, I'm missing the tour.
The Tour de France was an amazing thing.
I really hate sports, but I do love the tour very muchly. I don't know why. It's just human endeavor.
There are other cycling events that could surely whet your appetite.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just something about the tour. There's just those 3 weeks that just give me a respite from life.
I do miss it, and well done to Chris Froome, eh?
Well done to Froome, and, well done to all of them. I really like Scabo Gramai.
It's a solid name.
Yes, it's a great name. He's the Ethiopian cyclist, Skabu Gramai. It's people like that aren't in the that you don't see in the headlines and stuff. That I just think they're badasses because they're not getting all the airtime and everything, and they're still cycling their asses up those Alps.
You're not wrong. I like the one chap who, I believe he's Belgian, and he has never eaten a bagel.
Oh, yes.
Nor does he believe that mauve exists as a colour or a concept.
I love that guy. I can't remember his name. It was something like Kierkegaard, but not Kierkegaard, obviously.
Indeed, but a philosopher on the bicycle in his own special way.
Isn't it? Actually, I think it was Skabu Gramai.
Oh.
I don't want to mispronounce anyone's name.
Oh, no, with a name that solid, you don't want to get anything wrong.
It's a solid name, and they're a bunch of solid bikers, and I miss seeing them all haul their skinny little asses up the Alps. But Dukey.
Yes.
Your guest this week, I really love his music.
Me too.
Personally, love his music.
I'm a huge Baddies fan. I love Bait, and I love Asylums, and he has been in all 3 bands, 2 of which are going from strength to strength, respectively.
Well, I really like that Irene deciphered his lyrics for the chorus of Battleships, because I really, really love that song, and I really love the lyrics. And I just couldn't work out those chorus lyrics, and now I can, and now I love the song even more, if that was possible.
Yeah, tell me about it. In my own head, I thought it was about slipstreams and 10 speeds.
There was stuff online that somebody's, did all the lyrics, but they couldn't decipher the chorus, and they got it very wrong. I'm sure you could do a whole show on, what people think the lyrics were, but what they actually were.
Well, like Guns N' Roses, Paradise City. I thought it was, when I first heard it, take me down to the very last city. I thought it was about this post-apocalyptic world. Perth, Australia, the only city still surviving after the bombs had done their damage.
Isn't it funny what the brain can... you can just make up your own stuff and just have this whole picture in your head.
I've just realised something.
Yes.
We were talking about the Tour de France and the fact that you miss it.
Yes.
And over the years of listening and enjoying the song Battleships by Baddies, I, again, heard Slipstream and 10 Speeds.
Yes.
Maybe I thought it was about the Tour de France.
Possibly. I can see where you might get that, Dukey.
But it's not. And Irene got the lyrics right.
Irene sounds like she's gone off to Essex to find the lovely Michael Webster to have her wicked, wicked way with him, if he is so permitting.
Well, indeed. All I know is that I'm one Janet Street Porter mask down.
I walked into your studio and I saw that mask and it kind of freaked the shit out of me. I mean, genuinely.
Janet does have that effect on people.
Yeah, I don't really know who she is, but that mask is kind of freaky. I think it's freaky because it's eyeless.
True, but then when you wear it, your own beautiful eyes can fill the void where Janet's missing eyes should be.
I find her irritating as a person, but I also find her quite endearing as well. So I have to hold those two separate opinions in my head at the same time, which I find a little bit difficult. But one of the reasons I find her endearing is because in the 60s, she had all these drugs.
You do.
And she decided to keep them safe, so she put them in an envelope.
As one does.
And wrote drugs on the envelope, and then put them in a drawer. And then her house got raided because they knew that I don't think she was a big druggie, but I think she hung out with a lot of people who liked their drugs. So when she got raided, the police obviously had a perfectly easy time finding where the drugs were, because I just love that story and it just endears me to her.
It's strangely considerate to the old Bill to do that.
Isn't it? I think if people don't like dear Marcia, you could look up who she is. I don't even know what she's famous for. I guess she's just famous for being a talking head, right?
Absolutely. She's famous for being Janet Street Porter.
Which is ironic because she does have quite a braying voice.
Janet Street Porter.
Yeah, like that. So I think people find her irritating, or some people might love her, and I kind of feel like both.
All I know is that the track that Bait have that features Janet Street Porter is bloody good.
It's really good. I love their music, and we're kind of rushing through this introduction because you had lots of chitty-chatty with Mr. Michael Webster.
We chatted for hours, and this has been one of the most difficult interviews to edit for all the right reasons. I wanted to keep everything, but it would have turned into a 4-parter.
Well, isn't that just a good sign?
Hear, hear.
You guys had a good time together, and so we're keeping this quick, aren't we?
We certainly are.
We're giving it, I gotta learn how to shut my hole so that we don't go on too much.
Let's get you some caffeine.
Yeah, I'll go have some more caffeine.
And Sylvia, why are you a bit down?
I am missing I'm with Marcia. I need a vacation, Dukey.
Oh, fair
I've
enough.
been working really hard, and I'm looking forward to all of us going off to the festival.
Bring it on. Edinburgh Festival, there will be special Dukey Radio Show episodes.
Yes, so bring it on. But firstly, bring on your wonderful interview for Mr. Hunky Spunky, as Irene is calling him.
Here's Michael Webster.
Hello, my name is Michael Webster, and my favourite word is pillock.
Pillock is one of those words where you could use it on EastEnders as a pre-watershed insult, along with toe rag.
Well, I love the way it's written. I think it looks great. And I spell it Pillock. And I love the way it's written. I love the way it looks. And I love the way it sounds. And I love the fact that it's quite a kind of harmless kind of cuss, if you know what I mean. If you call someone a pillock, they're probably not going to be that offended. If you called someone a cunt or something
But they're
like
not
that.
going to say cunt on Albert Square.
No, no.
Yo, you pillock.
Yeah, I think it's in the like Pratt is another good one. You know, you can get in that, but then you wouldn't imagine an American saying either of those words, like "shut up, you pillark." You know, I mean, it just doesn't. It don't work that way.
You're such a Pratt, Michael.
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
But
it's a uniquely British word.
Yeah, and so that's another reason that I love it as well. And I'm very, I'm not like Mr. I'm so proud to be British, but you know, I do like the fact that I am from Britain.
After each gig that I've seen you do in the Baddies days, I love the fact that you would tell the audience, you know, we are the Baddies and we are from Southend.
Yeah.
It gives location and civic pride and a good kind of full stop to the evening's entertainment.
It does, yeah. I mean, I think... but to be honest, I got a lot of that from two frontmen. One was Speedo from the Rocket from the Crypt, and one was from Howlin' Pele Almqvist. Is that his name? From the Hives?
From the Hives.
The guy from the Hives.
I love the Hives.
And I thought they were two great frontmen. And what I found about them is that they were very proud to be on the stage and proud from where they come from. So they come on straight away, like, you know, we're Rocket from the Crypt from San Diego or something like that, you know. And I thought, well, you're just getting down to it. Those are American style bands. They're very good frontmen, very good showmen. And Baddies Live was a show, you know. It was a bit like that. And
affirmative,
it was intense.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. I love the fact that at your final gig, which I was at in Southend, early December 2012.
Yeah.
Time flies. I wasn't sure if you were going to do it, and you did, you know, say, you know, in Southend,
Yeah.
we are Baddies from Southend.
Yeah.
And that was a really emotional gig and a good place to start, starting where Baddies finished.
Yeah.
I was in a band called Top Buzzer, and earlier that year we played with you in Southampton.
The Joiners.
At the Joiners.
It was that venue, I'm sure it was.
And at the time, I detected a little bit of, not negativity, but a bit of sadness about your state of affairs in terms of being in a band.
Yeah.
I met you at shows that you did in London in previous years, but I'm not sure whether or not it was just an issue of where you were headspace-wise or the fact that we were sharing a bill. But I remember you asking certain questions about the happiness levels that I was having on the road. And, I mean, you were lovely, completely affable. Yeah. But I did detect a bit of darkness.
Yeah, I mean, there was that time. I mean, it would have been around, I think that was around the time when we were doing Build then, the second album. So we kind of, by that point, we'd gone from doing a hell of a lot of touring all around Europe and even over into Japan and Australia and all that stuff that we were so proud to go and do, and it was a great experience, to losing our agent, losing our manager, and kind of everybody in between, really. And so the only people we could trust were ourselves. And we weren't really getting that many gigs, and it was kind of like, it was almost like we knew it was kind of, we knew we had to really be strong to try and like fight against the current, really, because, you know, the chips were stacked against us massively. And I think you can't help but if you let your guard down, it does kind of give you a bit of a kick in the bollocks every now and again, and that's kind of, we were feeling like that at the time, like, for sure.
From a timeline point of view, Baddies farewell show December 2012. When did Build, your second and final album, come out? Roughly the release date.
Oh, you know what? It definitely came out that year, and it came out, I thought it came out in like early in the year, but I might be wrong. It might have,
feels about right. I seem to remember you were
March or
just
something.
on the verge of promoting Germany.
Yeah.
Around that time. How soon before that final gig did you collectively agree to call it a day?
I think it was a couple of months before, definitely.
Was there a specific moment? I mean, you'd mentioned the agent had gone, management had gone.
Yeah. Well, literally that very day, it all happened on one day. That they'd gone before we decided to do Build, and we literally had. I remember receiving these emails, and my stomach was just like, literally, that feeling when you've been dumped by someone, you know. I just felt like, oh, a big change is happening, and I'm out of control. It's not in my power to do anything about it. And literally, we called like an emergency meeting, and we went to the Alex, which is a place in Southend, serves really good craft beers on a Friday, £3. Didn't do it then though. But we went in, and we were just like, look. My thing was that the band I was in before, we'd only ever did one album, and then we split. And I was like, I can't do that again. I can't just do one and leave it there. I've got unfinished business. I need to do something. And we all agreed there and then that we were going to do the album, and we went forward and we did it. And it was really hard to do it, but we raised enough money through a pledge campaign, and fans clearly wanted it. But when it came out, we didn't have an agent. It was really difficult for us to kind of, and that's, I guess, the time where we played together. And I think I knew it would, even when we was recording it, I knew that it would be the last album we did. I never really said it, but I think I knew it, and some of that did come through in some of the lyrics that were there. We spoke before about it with the last track on the album, Star Surfing.
Planet Earth is calling me. It's calling me. Planet Earth is calling me. It's calling.
It's a really sad song.
It certainly is.
It came on my shuffle the other day, and I was like,
Planet Earth is calling me.
Yeah, it's calling me home, and it was almost like, that's enough now. You've had your time. You've had your sort of 5 minutes of minor fame, and you better come back down to reality. And that's how I was feeling. Like, I didn't want to at all. I wanted to stay up there, and I wanted everything to be fine, but there was pressures, and I just couldn't continue doing it. And so, against everything, we decided not to do it anymore, and that left me in quite a miserable place for a while, actually.
I can imagine.
Because I didn't know what was next.
You were saying off pod when we were talking about the end of Baddies, that, and particularly the track Star Surfing, that, in going home and in leaving Baddies and that world, that you were returning to reality. What was reality for you?
Reality was that I had spent my whole 20s and late teens, actually, in various bands. I never went to university. I never wanted to. I never had anything I wanted to study other than I just wanted to play music, and that was it. Do it in my own way, which I am proud to say I've had great experience doing that and amazing time. But what came with that was that whenever I needed it, I had to just get work here and there and do bits and pieces. So I never really had any kind of backup plan. No kind of like career that was in tandem with the music career. It was that shit or bust, basically. It was just like, it's that or nothing. And I found myself quite quickly on a building site.
Right. I seem to remember the last gig being the 2nd of December. If not, it was close to it. December, January, this is not a great time to be out and about on a building site.
I mean, there's probably about 18 months within the Baddies kind of chapter where I was able to make a living out of it full time. Got a publishing deal, got this, and I was like, brilliant, this is perfect, living the dream.
Living the dream.
And then, but the rest of it was work here and there, temp jobs, and I've done 1,000 of them, like Forrest Gump. And so towards the end of it, I found myself on a building site and was working for a friend. So I was already doing that by the time that last gig came round, and I didn't want to do the last gig. The boys wanted to do it, and I just said, like, I don't know if it's right to do it. I just felt as though it would be emotional, and it was. You could look at it as a celebration, which it was as well, but I just thought, because I was reluctantly saying goodbye to it, I didn't want to. It's almost like you don't want to go to the funeral, you must, but you don't want to go. And when you've got to stand up there and sort of talk about it, although I didn't talk much, I think I said something towards the end of the second set, the build set. We did 3 sets that night actually, and I kind of addressed it there. I kind of sort of said, you know, I'm proud of these boys, and it's sort of time to move on. And there is a video of that last set, and I watched it once, and I just couldn't watch it again because I was just like, it is sad. And yes, the reality was, you know, I digress, but the reality was I was on a building site. I felt like shit because I didn't know what I was doing. I learned how to use a few tools, but that was it.
What sort of work were you doing?
Pulling cables.
Right.
Pulling cables. That's it.
So you went from putting your leads into amplifiers and guitars and effects pedals to pulling cables on a building site.
Pretty much it, yeah.
Did you not want to have a farewell gig, possibly and maybe subconsciously, with a view of keeping things open-ended?
I mean, I guess so. I mean, we could have always, you know, could have always still gone back to do it. And the thing is that I'm quite a purist when it comes to bands, and I think that like it's not only about those people working together. I think it's about a time and a place, and I think that Baddies connected to a degree at that time because it was, you know, culturally it was slightly different. You know, we had MTV2, which was a massive sort of thing, and that massively pushed us up. You know, live music was huge at the time. Indie was big, and we sort of tailed onto that kind of big surge of UK indie bands like, you know, the Future Heads and Maximo Park and Kaiser Chiefs and all those bands that we were kind of thrown in with. Although I didn't agree, we sounded like them. So I think to do it now, or to ever go back and do that again, I don't think it would work. And I don't think there'd be enough people that'd be interested. That's just me personally, how I feel. It might be underground that everyone really wants to, but I'm quite sort of realistic about it. And my worst nightmare would be to get the band back together, rehearse it all up, and then there's 30 people that turn up, and I'll just be like, you know,
ending the Baddies as a band at Chinnery's that night. It's the perfect full stop, the perfect ending to a band. I mean, that was a tremendous gig. Without a doubt, one of the best gigs I've been to. It's in my top 5. Genuinely, because it was so emotional, and you could tell that this wasn't an easy decision for all of you, and you played every single note like it was your last gig. And I mean, I remember seeing you, you know, absolutely giving it your all vocally, and seeing kind of veins coming out. And I've seen Baddies a number of times, and I'm in no way trying to hint at the fact that you never gave it your all. But this was to the point of, you know, maybe even damaging yourself. I mean, were you hoarse the next day? This wasn't 100%. This was over 100%. And I'm not one of those people that likes to use the slightly American, I'm going to put in 155% for you. This was a man giving his all. You must have felt exhausted emotionally and physically the next day.
I mean, yeah, for sure. And I think it was just kind of a way to move on as well. You know, it was like I did get a lot of anger out, and I walked off stage and I broke down like for a minute, and then I was all right after that, but I had to get it out. But my body physically was shaking because it was just like I felt as though it was a physical thing. It wasn't just emotional. It was just like I'd spent all this time doing it, and it was gone within, you know, just within a set, you know. But at the same time, you got to, you know, look back with fond memories. But then I remember saying, like, straight after talking to people, and they said, "What are you going to do?" And I just said, "Well, I'm still going to do something. I'm still going to do something." And I wanted to get that going ASAP, but I didn't know what it was going to be. And yeah, it was I don't know, it was tough. It was that night was tough, and but certainly the it sort of changed that night. I did give it a little bit more. I did almost scream a lot more than I did before, and my voice broke up. And you can sort of tell that. I mean, even my voice sounds different now to what it did probably 5 years ago, because I've been pretty much screaming ever since. But I feel as though I need to. It gets a lot out of me when I do it.
And then hearing about you going on a building site, I get it. You needed some time to think about what to do next. And obviously doing, Baddies version 2 under another name was not going to be it. And so how long did it take in between that final gig and you picking up a guitar or any instrument for that matter?
I think there was a weekend where, I didn't want to pick it up at all. I'd kind of lost my confidence, like big time. Actually, I didn't sing for a long time. I didn't. I picked up the guitar every now and again, but everything it was just finding I just couldn't find the route. I just couldn't find what it is I was going to do. And, technology had changed slightly as well. And that had a bit of an impact, because when I was writing all the Baddies stuff, all of the stuff I would just do it all on my phone. And I think as a Christmas present, my mum bought me some Pro Tools stuff, which I asked her for. She didn't. My mum, she doesn't know about music.
I was going to say, that's really switched on.
Yeah, this is it, son. Here's a bit of Pro Tools. that will sort you out. So I asked for that, and and it was just a little Pro Tools Express thing, and it sat boxed in my spare room for about 8 months. I didn't even open the box. Didn't even open it. Didn't have the guts to even try. Because it was like, because I felt burnt out. I felt as though because I'd been in a lot of other bands before Baddies as well, so and doing it to, with first band I was in Gerica, we touring loads and was signed Sanctuary and all that stuff. So I was bass player in that, and then that split, and then I fronted Baddies, and then that split as well. And I was like, I always said I would never do anything else initially when Baddies was going, well, if this stops, I'm not doing anything else. But you quickly realise that is who you are, and you can't live without it. But when you can't live without it, but you don't know which way to go, then you start to feel a bit sad. So the Pro Tools was boxed up in my room. But I had to learn how to use it, and that was, you just got to, so it's even more like you've got to conjure up more kind of enthusiasm to do it, even though you're feeling like shit. So it was difficult for me to do it, and that's why it sat there for so long. But in the end, I got my head around it, and it was a new way of writing for me. So it kind of, I could overlap stuff better. I could put half decent beats in, and that, I think that's where I started to form ideas about where I could go with it. And there was I wrote some absolute load of old bollocks in between. Some of it is fucking awful. And then I started to doubt myself and think, fuck, was it all them and not me? And, and what would I do? What would Mike from Baddies do? And it's like, you're not Mike from Baddies anymore. You're Mike, and you got to do what you think's right.
And discovering who the non-Baddies Mike could be was not going to happen overnight. And it wasn't going to happen immediately after opening up the box of Pro Tools goodness.
Yeah, no, it certainly wasn't. And it was genuinely like the worst time in my life. I had a fucking awful time. And it's, I don't know. It took me time to kind of get my head around where we're going to go. And I needed inspiration. I needed inspiration from someone. And that came from working with Luke Branch.
Luke Branch, who is the lead singer of Asylums, as well as being the bass player of Bait, two bands who are working in tandem with each other.
Yeah.
And you and Luke both are working within Cool Thing Records as well, which... If you have your webcam on, you'll be able to see that Mr. Webster is sporting a very smart Cool Thing record shirt. And how did that happen? How did that come about? And from a timeline point of view, when did you first meet Luke, or have you always known him?
I've known Luke for quite a long time, but not closely. We were in rival bands when I was before Baddies. We was in like rival bands. I've known him since the school days. So we went to rival schools as well, and so I've always admired like him as a songwriter and that kind of stuff. And anyway, he was after Baddies, he was in a similar position to me. We'd meet up every now and again, and we'd be like, "Oh, so what's going on?" You know, and kind of almost compare stories of what's going on and
battle
kind of
scars and wounds.
Exactly, yeah,
emotional and physical.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and then he just phoned me up one day and he just said, "Look, I'm going to do something new. Would you consider playing some bass for me?" I wasn't doing nothing at the time. I was writing a few little tunes here and there, showing him some crap I'd come up with, but nothing that I was really that proud of, you know. And I just said, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it." And so, but picking up the bass again from, because I was initially bass player, then guitar, vocals, and then back to bass again. I didn't know what to do. Like I didn't know, well, in terms of being on stage. So from really like being a frontman that would like to get sort of in your face and stuff, to sort of standing back and kind of being reserved again. It was screwing my head like big time.
I can imagine.
But we did it. We started working together, and what I realised very quickly is that Luke was really fun to work with. There was all the negativity that had become, that consumed all of us in Baddies, like that the industry had kind of given us, and the kind of, you know, feeling hard done by and all those awful feelings that, you know, no one should have.
Bitterness is not a good look.
No, it's not.
And it's not a good feeling.
No, and I felt that just wasn't there with Luke. And he brought something to me that was like, right, he knew I wanted to do something as well, and we started doing Asylum stuff, and it was sounding really good. Very different to stuff I'd done before, and actually quite a bit different to what Asylums became. But it was quite good, and we both had something to offer each other. And then he sort of said, well, you might not want to, but maybe I'll play bass for you if you want. And we used to just do these sessions where I'd set the Pro Tools up. I'd learnt a little bit by then, and we'd just like get a beat going, and I'd have like a riff that I had, and then we'd just work around like with my stuff, you know. And then we did he'd come in with a demo, and we'd do the same, get it running through there, and we just worked together well, and there was just no pressure. It was all encouragement, all love, all really positive stuff. And yeah, I just felt like, yeah, okay, all right, I can do music like this. I can do it like this. If it's positive feeling and it's not making me feel like shit, then I'm game. But if there's any bullshit, I'm out.
Fair enough. It sounds as though you're meeting with Luke and working with him in not only one but two bands, one of which involved you directly as a writer, being reborn again, that it lifted a huge weight off of your shoulders and opened, you know, your perception in terms of what was possible. And that's a beautiful thing when you've been searching for what to do.
Yeah.
When did your brother, for those not in the know, Michael has a twin brother, Jim, who was the drummer of Baddies, and he's involved with Bait.
Jim got involved a little bit afterwards, and there wasn't. It wasn't for any real reason other than the fact that I knew that Baddies had hurt him as well a lot, and I wanted to shield him from any of that. It wasn't that I didn't want him involved in it. It's just that I thought that, you know, difficult when we was away an awful lot for him, and there was a few things that I was just like, do I want to kind of put him through that again? And so I sort of said to him, you know, do you want to do this or not? And he was just like, well, yeah, I definitely want to play again, like for sure, you know. But the thing is that how Bait became, it was literally, it happened organically. It was what I was coming up with from the Pro Tools, from the machine drums, really, became a massive part of the sound. So I would do these demos where I'd program some drums. Okay, they haven't got all the fills in and all that, and I'm a really rubbish programmer, just very basic. But the kind of limitation made it good. A bit like those bands, Wall of Voodoo and all that stuff, where you've got pretty much one beat that's going through it. The demo sounded like that, with me putting like these punky guitars over the top and then doing my vocals. And so then we started doing that within a room. And then from then on, trying to write within a room. And that just cast me back to where I didn't want to be.
I can imagine.
So I was just like...
Deja vu city.
Yeah, but then as a free piece, and me kind of being the sole guitarist and being a little bit like unsure of myself again, and it kind of made me feel like if I was going to do something from Baddies, it's got to be different. I'm not saying Bait's better than Baddies. I mean, at the moment, I'm massively into it. I think it sounds cool. You know, I'm really pleased with what we became. But what Bait was at that time was not what I wanted to do, and it was just, and I was kidding myself. So it was almost like just 3-piece straight up rock stuff. And I was like, no. So we was in a rehearsal room, and I'd kind of drafted in a keyboard player at that point, like programming synths, just to add atmosphere, because I knew it needed something. And we was in a room, and I was like, I'd started doing some demos that were a little bit more kind of meaty and a bit sort of different, really kind of like almost like trippy sounding. And I was like, they really liked them, and I was just like, well, we're not going to get that sound right. And then the guy who goes by the name of MRE, who is the synth player, programmer, keyboard, whatever, he said, well, look, why don't we do stuff in the studio? Why don't we I'll record it and we'll just call it demos, and if we need to redo it, then that's fine. And so we did it there, and so Bait became, and it sounded better. Whereas Baddies was, we were always in a room churning it out, playing until we sounded amazing. Then when I recorded, this was the polar opposite. Right. This was a completely different process. So it was, we go in, we program the beats, we get them right first, and then we throw some bass on, we throw some guitar on, and then I'll just walk around doing the vocal, not even with any cans on, just in front of the speakers, just prowl around, just have a really long lead and just move with it. And then we had the drums on afterwards. So Jim has got something that he's playing to is either a guide, and we can either change it to what he's doing, or he plays against it. So you've almost got like, Jim's drumming with a computer. It's like a kind of drumming team, a bit like Adam and the Ants, but with one robot and one Jim. You know,
absolutely.
So, and then I was like, there's something in this. There's something in this that just, and either way for me, it was totally Maverick. So something just different. You know, and that inspires me, you know. Breaking it down and starting again, weirdly in completely different genre. I remember watching classic albums, you know, that series, and The Who's Next, I think it was being examined. And Roger Daltrey was going through all the individual tracks. And one interesting fact about The Who is that as soon as the vocals start, the drums got really busy. And not in an offensive way, but similar to what probably Jim was having to deal with. Instead of reacting to time and the click, mental click or otherwise, he was engaging with the vocal parts and playing around them. And even though the fills, if you were to
examine them on some of the Who stuff, would sound very, very quirky and out of place. They weirdly anchor what the vocals are doing. And I think Jim has probably done a similar thing there, particularly if you have regimented beats happening in between it. So he had to find his space in between the beats.
Yeah, and it wasn't easy.
I can imagine,
There were some times where, you know, my reluctance in involving Jim was because I think I knew that we had something from the original demos, that machine sound, lo-fi machine sort of sound that I had just from the original, that had something. Then when we tried to translate it to a band, it didn't. So we went back to that, and Jim, and a few times he said, I don't think I can do anything. And I was like, you can. And there was a couple of like moments where it was like, I can't do it. I'm not, you know, I think we should just leave it. It's going to just be drum machine. And I was like, no, you can do it. Just try. And he'd be in there, and we just loop it round. And I'd just be like, right, come on. And he'd just try all these kind of like different patterns like with it until we go, that's it, that's good. Right, now what was that? And then we'd kind of work it out that way. And it was a much more fun and engaging way of working, and we produced the whole thing ourselves. Everything was, we didn't have to go and spend like 15 grand on recording an album at Rockfield or wherever it was, you know, any big studio. This was using what we had access to, limitation. And to me, it was probably, I don't know, one of the most proud, the proudest I could have been of an album, just because it was, I came out, we done it ourselves, and I came out really pleased with the results. And, you know, it involved everyone, but in a different way. It wasn't just, the experience of it wasn't just us in a room trying to work out, you know, the arrangements of the songs. We did that, but it was in a different way. It was like in the studio, and so you could just hit a button and change that, and then we're going to go and drum to that, or drum against it, and then, you know, it was a maverick way of working for me, for sure. You know, to just take it away from that traditional thing that I'd done so many times before.
I can see that. Also, you had a collective bond in that you were learning how to do this together.
Yeah.
In the same way that you felt when you were opening your present from your mum.
Yeah.
Pro Tools is not that intuitive. It's not an immediate program to pick up.
No.
And to be working in a way that's different from the way you normally were doing it, with a program that is not intuitive, if there are people listening who are able to pick it up really easily, good on you. And one more thing, fuck you. But so you're using Pro Tools for the first time. You're working on material in a different way, deliberately trying to move away from the Baddies world.
Yeah,
you know, which I completely understand. And then recruiting your brother, and then your brother's operating more as a percussionist rather than a drummer.
Yeah.
In terms of, you know, a drummer who keeps time versus somebody that's adding spice and icing constantly over the tunes. And to be doing that in tandem, even though that probably took a lot longer than in your Baddies days when you were working out a new song, the discovering sounds like it's part of the pleasure, part of the fun. For sure.
And actually, you know, casting back to Build, when we were doing that, again, that was something different. We were working outside of our comfort zone, if you like, because Jim and Simon, when we was in Baddies, were learning how to use like Logic and stuff like that, and that's where those little kind of, although they sound quite on their own, they sound probably quite poxy, that they really added something to the sound. Sonically, we sounded like a lot bigger suddenly, and that was fun to like rehearse to set up. And Jim was playing to a backing track, in fact, of stuff that we had programmed ourselves, and that was a challenge as well. And you know, initially was at Loggerheads with Jim saying, we got to move things forward, we got to change, you know, we might need you to play to a click, and we had a big argument about it, and he got really upset. And then the next week he said, right, I've organised it, I've worked out how we're going to do it, I'm going to buy this equipment, I'm going to do that. So it was just, you know, we moved on with that. So then it was like, well, how do we, I think really almost what we're now doing with Bait is almost what I was yearning for there a little bit, is to have, if we'd just had that little bit more knowledge back then, but obviously hindsight's a
absolutely,
good thing, you know. It's where working with someone like MRE, who is an electronica producer, produces his own music, he's got that knowledge in that area that I have not got. I know how I want it to sound, but I've got no clue on how to get there. And it's that makes, I think, Bait sound a little bit more out there and different, and actually quite current, I think, because it's turned all those post-punk influences that I love and you love, I know as well, into some. It's repackaged it and made it something that's a little bit more. You know, there's even sections of it that sound almost quite grimy in a way,
absolutely,
and a little bit kind of slight hip hop beats or something like that, and or even like clubby, like electronica underworld sort of thing as well. But that mixed in with the anger and the power of and the spiky guitars and all that shit. I was very pleased with the results of it.
You've created your own world. MRE.
Yes.
Where did you meet him?
So basically, yeah, this again, casting back to from my dark days of when I was working on building sites and stuff like that, I decided that I thought I would volunteer to teach music through Luke. Actually, Luke sort of introduced me to that, and that came from because I went in. I did a talk one day at the local college. I did a talk when I was in Baddies. Went in and just spoke to the students about what I was doing and all that stuff. And I got a big buzz out of it. In a weird way, it's almost like a gig.
It's a performance.
Yeah.
You're fronting it.
Yeah.
And you're talking about what you love.
And you're planning it, and it's, you know. And anyway, like I thought, you know what, this is a good route for me. I enjoy this, and so I pursued getting involved with the college. So I volunteered one day a week, and I went in. And in the end, I got a job out of it. I got a job teaching. So that's what I do now. And I met him there, and so I work with Luke as well. And it all ties in because we were able to use studio space, etc. That you know, that was available to us. So we used that, and I believe everything happens for a reason, and it kind of directed us towards that, and that's how I met him, and that's how, you know, I believe Luke called me for a reason, and it was to change my life around, and he's contributed towards that, but it's also bringing in elements of the past life, if you like, such as my brother, who's always going to be a massive part of my life anyway, and with such a talent that he's got, how could I not include him? You know, so yeah, met MRE there, and wasn't even sure if it'd even work, to be honest.
It's a wonderful privilege to be in a situation to try it out. The not knowing is part of the fun. You could go in with musicians who, you know, want to do kind of a post-punk thing, and you know it's going to work. You can do that in your sleep.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you were talking about that one time in an earlier incarnation of Bait, when you got in just as a three-piece, and you knew where it was going, and you knew that, been there, seen it, done it. The list of ingredients that make up Bait, quite disparate.
Yeah.
It shouldn't work. And that's why it's so great that it does.
Yeah.
And the material seems very, very personal on top of that. And the album's an absolute grower. First time when I heard it, I thought, you know, this is different. And my initial headspace was, I can see why this album has happened. You know, it just felt so personal to me. And, you know, the sounds and the production are quite dark and dense in places. Yeah. And, you know, to the point where it didn't make easy first listening. And it doesn't. But also, why the fuck should it?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, yeah.
By the time I had the third listen, I started to be able to make sense of the layers and to anticipate where certain parts were coming in. Not that you have to be able to anticipate things, but I was able to make sense of it and to find counter melodies and places and to feel the dynamics as they should be. I knew before I pressed play this was not going to be Baddies. Baddies Mark II. Baddies Part 2. Yeah. Revitalised Baddies. And although there might be brief moments here and there where I can hear tinges of the Baddies days in Push the Elephant, there's certain breakdowns which just sound like they could be off of Build.
Yeah.
Push the elephant, push the elephant, push the elephant, push the elephant.
I hear a darkness and an industrial edge that recalls Throbbing Gristle, early Nine Inch Nails, bits of Devo in places, and with a sprinkling of Killing Joke. But mixing all those elements together doesn't really do it justice. And I don't think necessarily, one has to pigeonhole stuff in order to understand it. But the fact is, I felt that I needed to in my own head. At first listen, I thought, I don't know if I'm going to like this. And then by the third and fourth listen, I completely got it. I'm loving the album.
Oh,
and cheers. I'm doing Janet Street Porter impressions quite regularly for one thing.
Janet Street Porter, Janet Street Porter, Janet Street Porter, Janet Street Porter.
I just love the idea that on that particular track, I thought, oh, they've done a fade out. I hate fade outs. And then I worked out that the mantra of Janet Street Porter was going to make its presence known.
Janet Street Porter.
It's an absolute rip-off of Gang of Four, though, as well. I can't remember which track it is. It's off Entertainment, but it's is it that please bring me evenings and weekends?
Please send me evenings and weekends.
Yeah, it cuts out and I was just like, I fucking love that. I'm going to do my own version of that. It's fun.
Please send me evenings and weekends. Please send me evenings and weekends. Janet Street Porter.
A bit of an ode to your post-punk roots, and referencing Gang of Four can only be a good thing. Janet Street Porter, obviously quite an enigmatic character, somebody who causes a great deal of reaction in people, not particularly a loved figure.
No.
How do you feel about Janet Street Porter?
I think she's a lot of fun. I think that she's outspoken. I think that there is a certain charm to her. I think a lot of people fucking hate her. The reason she is featured in that is purely by accident. I was just doing a blab track to one of the tunes, which eventually was called Greatest of the Teeth, and within mind, I had in mind that, have you ever seen the film Little Shop of Horrors?
Yes,
with Steve Martin, and one of my favourite scenes in that is where he's the dentist, and he's like the biker dentist, and he's got his leather jacket on, and he comes in and he knocks the woman out, but he's almost he's like psychotic kind of dentist, and I don't know. I've always thought I wanted to write a song about that for some reason, and so it's one of the more fun tracks that was off there, a little bit more like imaginative. And as I was thinking about things in a dentist, and I sort of, I said like the words pink coloured water, and then I just said Janet Street Porter like that, and then I stopped and I was like, oh yeah, I'll say that again, and then I'd name the title Greatest of the Teeth, and it just comes from out. You don't know where it comes from, but it comes from there, and it's just that tune's a little bit of fun actually on one of the lighter sides of the album, I think.
And you also reference some other people who cause similar amounts of divisiveness amongst the British public. Timmy Mallet gets referenced.
Yeah, I mean, I actually after written that, I sent that on to Simon from Baddies, and he loved it, but he said you got to stop referencing all these people, and I was like, should you? You reference Harry Seacombe on a Baddies track. Yeah. What tune was that?
Home Alone with Harry Seacombe.
God, I forgot I even did that. I wrote this whole email back to him justifying why I'd used it, because that I referenced Timmy Mallet in a darkened wood, and Keith Harris in an office with a dead owl, in the track I'm Still Here. I'm still here. I'm still here. And it does what it says on the tin. It's don't forget me, I am still here. You know, that whole idea, that kind of I don't know, fear of being still doing the same thing over and over and over again, even though there's no audience and no one cares. And that image comes from Keith Harris in an office with a dead owl. He's still there with, is it Orville? You know, but he can't, he's lost Orville, so he's got a dead owl with him, and he's kind of, you know, trying to, but he's working in an office. Or Timmy Mallet in a darkened wood with a pair of rabbits. No, playing Mallet with a pair of frightened rabbits. Because no one else cares anymore. That's it. It's that insecurity of me coming back and doing something, but no one caring. Or me carrying on doing the same thing, and again, no one caring. That's why they're in there. But it comes from my childhood, and those are people that I remember from my childhood. And yeah, maybe you shouldn't put... Maybe that does show my age. I actually don't give a fuck anymore.
Nor should you.
I don't. And there's a lot of people out there that would say, oh, you shouldn't reveal the age of a band if you're trying to get anywhere. And I'm not trying to get fucking... I don't want to be top of the world. I just want to create music that is personal to me now, and that I love. And I fucking love what I'm doing. I love the sentiment of it. And it's actually... We played a gig for John Kennedy in the Tooting one, and he and a few people came up to me afterwards, and they said it's a hard listen, you know, as you said, and it is even live, it's even more in your face. But what they said was that it's the lyrics that are pulling them in, and that's the first time that anyone's ever really kind of started saying that to me. Because even though in Baddies, I don't feel I wrote any bad lyrics really. But no one ever really said, oh, it's amazing lyrics that you're doing. You know, so I felt as though I'd grown a little bit in that sense.
Vocals are centre stage, and I think the sinister nature of them makes the listener want to stand up and open your fucking ears and take notice, and I think that's a good thing. And doing that live with all the noises that are, you know, and a lot of non-standard electronica parts, and you've got your Strat no doubt on full tilt.
Yeah, the Strat's still there. Yeah.
To be able to find vocal room with that onslaught is, you know, a triumph in itself. Badly beaten tennis ball, looking to get back onto the hardcore, off of the back. Too many beatings, got me repeated, never defeated, I'm better than that. I could do better than that. How different is a live show from the recording?
Well, this leads on to something I did want to mention, that was getting Bait together live was something that actually surprisingly came together a lot quicker, and it's mainly because of the incredible musicianship of like Jim and Luke. Like, Luke, although he's not a traditional bass player, I think is a very good bass player. I love his style of playing, and I think it adds something. It's got this kind of like looseness that's like that you need. It's like this swagger that maybe I wouldn't give. I'm quite a rigid sort of bass player. I move, but you know, anyway, we're not going to compare bass playing. I mean, you know, talk about your bass playing. You know, yeah, we can go for it all. You know, but it's although I do love your Rickenbacker actually. But we'll talk about that another time. But yeah, so that live, getting it together, I was like, is this even going to work live? Because a lot of it was built up from machines, and you got to work out what you should and shouldn't play. But it does. It really does. And what Jim has had to do, which he's made it more exciting for him, although he was probably a little bit reluctant initially, is that he's got to work out. He's trying to play 2 beat patterns at the same time. So there is no drum machine live. He is the machine.
Blimey.
So he does it all. And he does it really well. So you've got... How we do it is, you know, I'll let you in on the magic. Jim bought triggers for his kick drum and his snare. So you've always got two sounds going on. You've got an acoustic sound and a electronic sound. So he's got that kind of, it makes the drums sound huge, which is a big part of, it's very like almost like a kind of electronic tribal thing that's going on. And then, but he's also got like an SPDS. And if you see any drummers watching festival stuff on telly, Glastonbury, whatever, you'll see most drummers now have these
it's
drum
an
pads.
essential piece of kit. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and
particularly that unit, it is the one.
But we started using that when we was in Baddies, and so he's got like the out of date one, the vintage one, if you like. I think there's an SPDS X now. But this is the SPDS.
Sounds so much warmer.
Yeah. I mean, but essentially it's a pad that you can just put whatever sound you want. And so because we've got MRE in the band as well, he produced the album, so he's got all the sounds there. And then he hits off certain things. So Jim is all drums. He does all the drumming. MRE does synths, and he hits off there's some vocal samples on there where there's some sort of weird screaming, like me doing that in the studio, and he sort of hits those off as well. And then Luke and me just pretty like we sort of bring the energy and the kind of the guitar and the bass, and I just do vocals on my own with just backups with Jim's voice because he sounds like me. So
I wonder why.
Yeah. So, but they're blood harmonies, aren't they? You know, apparently it is a thing that where families that sing together will sound better than if the others.
We're the Nolan sisters. Fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly that. You know, so which is why it's perfect for Jim to do that. But back to your question. It is different to Baddies. I didn't know what to do at first. It's almost a different part of my personality that's coming out. I think it's very honest. I think it's how I felt. There has been you can tell that I was angry when...
You feel a lot of anger in the words. It's the delivery, it's all of it. The chord progressions, the sounds. You'd mentioned grime references earlier, and I think some of that comes from an estuary delivery.
Yeah. The worm turns, the wasp's on its back, takes another mouthful of mud. Which way next? I look down on my fingers and pincers, up into the beak of the bird, or down into the darkness of the dirt.
Which is spoken, rather than sung.
Yeah.
Which in the world of grime is quite standard. But you don't seem to be an angry person.
No, I mean...
Not that you have to be that person all the time.
No, it's channeled. And it certainly was, like, during writing that record, each song has got its own thing. Some of it's just, like, from imagination. Some of it's from, true experiences. What I decided to do was not in Baddies. I was like, blah, 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 blah. Everything was up there. It was as loud and as high as I could go without actually screaming. And I just thought, well, I don't want to do the same thing. It's a very percussive vocal that I was doing there, very, regimented. It was like all kind of almost rapping in a way, And I just felt vocally that I didn't want to be so one-dimensional. So there are sections where I am almost, it starts off with me talking like this, one turns, it goes back there and it is just me and I'm telling a story and but there are sections, the dynamic, the flow of the album, it does take you more on a journey. I know it's only 8 tracks, but it does take you more on a journey as opposed to it being so one-dimensional. And I think that's important in music, and I think it certainly satisfied me more as listening to it, being a listener, listening back. And it also pushed me, to be like, yeah, my voice has probably changed a little bit over 5 years. And if I did just do the same thing, then, and I am talking, I think I've probably been the most honest I've ever been on this record with my actual, I do sound quite common, you're in Southend, it's, I couldn't be any more honest, on there. And I just thought, yeah, no bullshit. No.
It does what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
The tin's fucking good. This is a weird reference back to what you were saying earlier about the fact that in the days of when you were in Baddies, that people wouldn't reference the lyrics so much. And I have a confession to make. Battleships was my introduction to you guys. And what an introduction. I have sung that chorus countless times, and I have no idea what the fucking lyrics are. Something about a jet stream. Yeah. I have no idea what the lyrics are. You could be singing about what you're going to be getting at the local Aldi for all I know. And I care about lyrics. So that must tell you something.
Yeah,
what are they anyway?
Right, so I'll see if I can remember them. It's it's an emergency.
Right.
But because it's phonetically incorrect, probably. It's an emergency. Yeah. And then it's like, sound the sirens so that everyone's up to speed. This ain't a drill. It's a matter of urgency.
Right.
Right. And then it's, so let us run it on home. Whoop, 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 whoop.
The whoop whoops I remember.
And that's just a rip-off from Baby, You Can Drive My Car, Beatles.
Beep, 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 yeah.
Massive rip-off from that.
Yeah, love it. I heard different lyrics. In fact,
yours are probably better. So this is the thing.
It involved transport and jet streams. Trust me, yours are better. But there you go. The fact that, being sung and when you're playing with timing and phonetics in order to make something fit, they're going to be not so much lost, but something you feel rather than engage with lyrically. With Bait, that's not the case. I can understand each and every word that you're saying. And that's the beauty in it. It is right up front. And
I think it was as well, like, the way that... Because MRE is massively into, like, obviously a lot of electronica music and a lot of hip-hop as well. And, it's all based around the rapper, right, in hip-hop, or the frontman or woman or whatever. So you've got to be able to hear what they're saying. Yeah. It has to be up front and centre. And he was very much like, it needs, as a producer, he was like, it's got to be the main thing. And it's also got to be real, and it's not got to be too slaved over. It's got to be, it's literally, and I'm not joking, 2 takes.
Really?
2 takes, walking around with a microphone and just getting it, because you're not setting yourself, I've got to get this, I've got to hit this, like, no, perfect. It is like that, and it's the same with the guitars, and it's the same with the bass, and it's the same, maybe the drummer's not so much, but pretty much Jim's not bang on it anyway most of the time. So, just having that focus there, not worrying too much, and I do think that is the secret to it. We'll probably try and do it all again now, and it just won't work. But
immediacy is a good thing. What comes from your gut, on a first take, is difficult to better often.
I mean, I don't know, like when you're writing stuff, if you have the same thing where you've come up with, you come up with a killer riff or this really great chord progression or something, and then you think, well, what am I going to do vocally to it? So it's most of the time, I do find most of the time if I come up with a blab track, it's going to be that most of the time, and then I start to fill it all in afterwards. But I don't know if that's the same for you or...
No, it's very similar. I don't think it's a standard way of working. I think it's a bit of a quirky way of working, but I hear you 100% and do a very similar thing. I think it's how you engage with parts and how you feel melody, and often, and weirdly, you were saying off pod how you use the notepad on your phone to put in words and phrases. I do exactly the same thing. And those words and phrases, I could be out and about on the street and just hear a turn of phrase that someone uses, and that becomes a gateway for a melody or an idea, or just I start thinking about the syllables and how you can work around them.
Yeah.
So if somebody was to look at my notepad, it would appear to be a very disjointed, weird word salad. But it all makes sense. And when you mentioned that, I felt a real kinship. I thought, oh, I'm not alone.
I think a lot of creative people do it. I was watching this. I'm a huge fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Do not get me started. Yeah. Oh, I can't wait for the new series.
No, me neither. I'm up to date and I love it. And so I was watching there's not many interviews of him, but I was watching an interview with Larry David last night, and he was saying as well, he just had ideas, just a notebook full of ideas of just scenarios or words or whatever that he used. And again, I felt a kinship with that, and I thought, I think if you're creative, you've got, we're all going to, we get older, we're all going to start losing our minds at some point, so our memories aren't going to be so good. So you've got to document that shit down.
Absolutely.
He's almost like writing a diary. And even if you just, I've got loads of voice memos, that's it, of me like humming in bass lines or guitar lines and lyrics and different bits and pieces as well. And if you listen back, some of it is utter bollocks. I'm sure it is. But you go back to it sometimes when you need something, as that is just literally the gold there, just to it might just some kind of inspiration might happen.
It becomes a key to a whole bank of ideas that possibly were lurking about in your frontal lobe when you first heard them. And it's interesting that you mentioned Larry David, because often there'll be a catchphrase in each episode which becomes repeated and quite lyrical. I just watched the Left Phone Call episode, and there's a scene at the restaurant where the waiter, who's been a bit of an arsehole, refuses to give a doggy bag to Jeff's wife. And when he reluctantly gives it and gets asked, is this food going to be okay? The waiter says, "We shall see."
We do not give doggy bags to dogs.
Why do you think they call it a goddamn doggy bag, huh?
You know what? I'm gonna take that home.
Do you have an animal?
No.
Does he have an animal?
No.
So you are going to eat that?
Yes.
You promise me?
Yeah.
We shall see.
What a fucking nut job.
We shall see.
We shall see.
Yeah.
We shall see. And just, I end up repeating those phrases. For the next day, I'm going, we shall see. And I like using these phrases. And again, it's how you integrate with language. The one thing about Curb Your Enthusiasm is that, unlike most programs, the series get better with time.
Yeah, for sure.
When you look at the first series now, I still love it. But it's not a patch on the most recent ones. But
I think it's based on the characters that he's brought in, or in fact, actually, he must have cast it really well, because it's an improv show, right? So when they come in, they're given a guideline of what they are, fed a few lines, but then given the kind of scenario, and then they go with it. And I think it's just got better. The characters, they grow. Like Susie is just one of my favourites, because she's like, "You fat fuck," like just never never any benefit of the doubt. He's a cunt, and that's it. And she's just going to say it, and but her mouth is so foul and so funny as well.
Fuck you car wash cunt.
But then when you've got like Leon and those guys, the black family that come in. and then Leon becomes a massive character, and he's probably my favourite character out of all of them.
I love Leon.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole... In the same... I think it's called Left Call. That's the one where Leon gives some wonderful advice to Larry, who experienced some racism at the clinic to, step in that ass, Larry.
He's got you got snicker wrappers all over the floor.
Yeah.
You're gonna put out cigarette butts. You gotta twist that ass up, Larry.
Yeah. Put that. Larry was here. And the amazing advice that once you leave it, you leave that door open. You leave it open.
You spray paint. Larry was here. Wash me. All that kind of shit. Fuck his whole asshole up. These Snicker bars, throw some paper on the floor, read a newspaper, ball the paper up the newspaper, and throw the newspaper on the floor. Fuck his whole asshole up. You know what I'm saying? Then you open that asshole one more time. Open it again. Open that asshole again. Oh! Step out his ass. And leave that motherfucker wide open so he know you been there.
Open it up. Step
in the asshole.
Spray paint. Larry was here. Leave garbage. Snickers. Eat Snickers. Leave garbage.
Spit. Fuck it.
Get out. Open it up again.
Yeah, step out the asshole.
Step out.
Don't even close that motherfucker. Leave it open so he know you been there. Get in that ass, Larry.
Don't worry.
All right.
In my own way, I've stepped into a number of people's arseholes. I've had a Snickers bar. So lyrical and so wonderful. I'm so glad you're a fan. It's
massive fan. Huge.
Yeah,
it's my favourite.
Curb. It's not to everyone's taste, but it's to mine, and I absolutely love it.
I think you can say it has similarities to like The Office, but where you're like, oh, don't say that. But with Larry, because he's almost like a bit softer. I don't know. There's something about him that seems a bit more fun and a bit more kind of quirky. That you're just like, yeah, no, I can totally. That delivery, it translates to me a lot better than The Office does. Because The Office, I think sometimes it's just so. For a start, you got the music with Curb Your Enthusiasm that softens it up. That
yes,
like that kind of that sort of music. It's like with a tuba or something like that. That it softens it up, and it just, to me, I think it's genuinely harmless. And I think a lot of the stuff like everyone's thought those ideas a lot.
Absolutely.
When someone parks and they've parked over across two spaces and shit like that, and all these ridiculous things that he comes up with. But everyone's found themselves in those scenarios, but they never fucking say anything.
And in a way, I think even Hitler wouldn't seem that evil if the footage you were watching had a tuba in the background.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly softens it up.
Your relationship with Luke and the two bands that you share with him, how does he cope with being just the bass player in Bait? And is it a similar dynamic to yourself as the bass player in Asylums? Has it been an easy adoption?
It's been totally easy, and like I said earlier, from that where we first got together and first started playing music together, there was none of this kind of preciousness of that's mine, or I want to be the singer. That's my song. It was all this just doing it for the love of. I think we were just happy that there was two people that just still wanted to play music after all this time. Really, because a lot of people had moved onto the next stage of their lives, which is probably at my age, having kids and getting married and loads of mortgages and all that stuff. And I think you can have that and still carry on doing what you love, for sure. You just got to be a little bit more, make the time count a little bit more when you're actually doing it. But no, certainly, as I said earlier, it was a little bit weird stepping back and playing bass. But after a while, you kind of, because when you are playing, you are putting on a show and you're standing up on stage, and it's kind of knowing what to do. And if I was to just sort of suddenly grab the mic and be like, right, yeah, this is Asylums from Southend, when he's the singer, it's no. And in the same way, and I love playing bass in Asylums, but I also love fronting Bait. Luke loves playing bass in Bait as well. He's a great frontman, but he's also a great bass player. And we just take the mic down, and he just feels as though because that's just not there. He just jumps around a bit like Chris Novoselic. He can just be a bit more goofy and just kind of do his thing, and it works. And he genuinely, he said to me, I really love having that role as well, because it is just almost not as much pressure for him to kind of engage the audience as much, although he's such an incredible performer. You know, he jumps like about 2 foot in the air every time he jumps or something.
He's got springs in his knees from the footage I've seen, my word.
I just don't know how he does it. But what there is this kind of, I think we felt as though Bait and Asylums were so different initially, but the kind of, because we've I don't know, those personalities of each member, they're kind of starting to like come together. It's like, because we've announced that we are doing Bait as well, and it does involve some of the same members, it's not like you go on stage and like, oh, I'm Mike from Bait tonight, and suddenly I'm Mike from Asylums. Initially it was a bit like that, but now it's, you know, I don't talk really when we do Asylums, but my voice comes from Bait and his voice is from Asylums, and so the personalities, he still wears the same sort of clothes. It's not like we're suddenly changing outfits and all that stuff.
You sound like you're genuinely supporting each other through your creative pursuits. And that sounds cheesy, but fuck sounding cheesy. That is what you're doing, and that's a rare thing. It's a rare dynamic that you both share.
Do you know,
juggling two bands, and then the label, which we haven't even had a chance to chat about yet.
Well, like, the whole thing, it came from, we started working together. We weren't even really in two separate bands. It was he had his material, I had my material. And he came around one day when we was going to have a jam, and he said, look, do you think we should start a label? And I was like, well, I never really thought about it, to be honest. But yeah, I'll do it with you. It's fine. And he'd already like done this logo design, and he'd obviously thought it all out in his head and what he wanted to do. And I just said, yeah. And it was kind of a bit of a like, well, we've both been burnt in the industry. It was a bit like, well, fuck you, we'll do it on our own terms. And we don't need to go and get a record deal. There was never a record deal out there for us. You know, I'm waiting for them to come to us. We were like, bollocks, let's just do it under our own steam. We'll bring it to them. But we'll bring it to them under in our own way, and we'll help each other out instead of like, which I think there was genuinely, and especially when I was in Baddies, certainly from my attitude, was like, fuck everyone else, I want to be the best. And I think, looking back, I'm not saying it was wrong, that attitude. It's not a very nice attitude to have, but we were Baddies, you know. So, but now, my attitude is, no, it doesn't need to be like that. In fact, you should champion other music. You should support it. You should all work together. It's a community, and that community spirit has kind of come from doing the label, come from teaching as well, having that kind of nurturing approach, as opposed to your crap, you know, I'm not interested. Everyone's got some kind of talent in them, and I think you should embrace it no matter what it is. So yeah, we started doing the label, and then, you know, initially we managed to get a distribution deal with Republican Music, who come out of Brighton, and we was only releasing like Asylum stuff. So it's only a Cool Thing Records Asylums, but you know, everyone knew that it's Asylums. It's just they've just put a name to their little label that they've done.
They can figure that out.
Yeah, they can figure that out. And until so. Then it was we kept saying to Republican Music that we are serious about doing this as a label, and we got some other local acts that we really like. We want to put some stuff out. What's the options? And they came up with the idea of doing a compilation EP, but it was basically an Asylums standalone single backed by 3 other bands. So it was an introduction. So it was the way we could say, yes, we are a label now. We are releasing other stuff. So, and they released it on vinyl. To be fair, we didn't shift loads of them because it was a standalone thing. It was a 4-track, 12-inch vinyl. You can take one. But it did mean that, we could introduce like these other acts, and we officially were a label then. So since then, we released a track by a girl called Becky Margaret. Received loads of play from Steve Lamacq. She hasn't even done a gig yet, and she's got an agent. All this stuff because just sheerly, all this is all off of one track.
That's brilliant.
It's amazing. Yeah,
it's still possible to do that.
And we've nurtured her in the way that we would when we're working together at the college. And then we released the Bait album as well, and it was just going to be a shotgun release, not a big budget, wasn't as high, and I was paying for it out of my own pocket, so we wasn't going to like kind of do that whole 18 months lead up to an album coming out. It was going to be 3 months, a couple of tracks, see what happens, get the album out, and momentum's still building now. It's just an ongoing thing that will happen with that. And then we've recently released a thing by a band called Suspects, and that's 2-piece wild man rock stuff. People will say like because it's 2-piece like Raw Blood, but it's not. It's got more of kind of it's got a bit of that edgy White Stripes, but like a bit dirgier and a bit more Queens of the Stone Agey almost.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's kind of but more dangerous.
So diversity is definitely a feature of the label.
And then which
is a good thing.
And we've got a band called Indian Queens that we're working with, who are wicked, and they're kind of like almost as a band, but like almost a bit like a trip hop thing. Like, and then we got we're going to do another Asylums album. We're going to do another Bait album. We're going to do more releases from Suspects. There's a band called the Horseheads we're working with, who are really cool as well. Petty Phase were a band we were working with as well. They were like they're like X-Ray Specs, bit like that.
Brilliant.
All girl punk band, look amazing. I can imagine a lot of boys in the look of them, dangerous punk looking girls, but all like really pretty, and just I can imagine a lot of boys being like, oh, wow,
bring it.
Much too young for me, So that's great, and it's really connecting as a label. We are getting a lot of interest from people from the industry's actually coming to us and wanting a piece of what we got, and it feels good. It feels good to have set this all up, and it's all from just working together instead of just being going on your own and fuck everyone else.
Absolutely, and you're doing it on your own terms, and you're giving something back to the local community of musicians. Are all of the acts reasonably local to Southend? Well,
we got Indian Queens are from Leytonstone, and I did meet them through. We played together when I was in Baddies, and they were under a different name, and kind of they'd been through a similar scenario, and they kind of reinvent themselves, and the results are great. Like the pain has helped. It is in the same way I feel that it's helped me. That going through that pain barrier, and I think they've produced some really, really great stuff, and I'll be really proud to be able to put some stuff out by them. Horseheads, really cool. Sort of like they're from Chelmsford. They're a little bit kind of quite a bit younger. They're sort of about 18, but they're just all about the energy.
So for East London, nearly Essex, Chelmsford, Essex.
Yeah. And then Suspects are from here. Petty Phase are from here. Becky's from here. And everyone else is from here. Yeah, so it is pretty much Southend there or thereabouts.
That's fantastic. So the label identity is a geographical one, and you've got distribution on the coast, although further that way, pointing towards Sussex. I remember when we were chatting post-gig at the Joiners in Southampton, you were talking about your pre-Baddies days in which you were playing bass. Were you doing slightly metal-y stuff in those days, or right?
Yeah. So we was in a band called Engerica.
Breathing in the feeling in the middle of my eye, got a feeling that it's burning and there is no reason why. 1-2 years, remember Woody, her face was fat but her legs were skinny. I lied to my heart, but my heart wouldn't listen. Spin me around, so I'm sick on the ground, then I can't say no, cause I don't know how. Yeah, I could tell by the smell I was gonna get it. Well, it worked and the baby's battle too. I took a chance, but I found it was over nothing. You and I, we could die. Wait a minute, why?
We was involved in that from when I was about 19 up until I think we split up in 2006. But we'd done a lot of touring. We had an agent and we were releasing odd singles here and there. And then we got a deal with Sanctuary. And at the time, they were one of the biggest independent labels in the country. And it was all run by Rod Smallwood, who was the Iron Maiden manager, yeah. But he ran this label as well. And he signed us. And we were like, brilliant, this is going to be great. Went and did the album. You know, it was good, but I think by the time we got round to the album, I think a lot of our mojo had kind of gone because we'd sort of was playing a lot of those tracks we'd had around a long time, and so I think the album sounds great. I don't revisit it a lot, but it was great times with one of my best friends, Dave and Neil, and but it was 3-piece. Punk, metal, but with like they were really well written songs, and Dave wrote those, and I was sort of playing bass and going crazy on stage and all that stuff, and we released the album, and he said we're just about to release the album, and he sort of said, oh, if we don't start earning money from it, I'm gonna enroll on this uni course. This Open University.
Right.
And it surprised me. And I was like, right, well, either I let someone dictate my future, or I get my act together pretty quickly and start learning how to write songs, which is what I did. So that's when Baddies started.
This happened when I was just 7 years old. Or was it 6? I'm not sure if I remember. All I know is that the heavy hand is sends me even now. With the risks I take, my bones are about to break. I said with the risks I take, my bones are about to break. The heavy hand is sends me even now. Yeah, the heavy hand is sends me even now. The heavy hand is sends me even now. Someone turned up.
You learned quickly.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'd not really written much. I started writing towards the end, and there was a B-side on one of the Engerica singles. The single was called Roadkill, and there was this track I wrote called Who Would Be Me, and it's awful. It is the most, it was all done on a 4-track. It was, I guess it in a lo-fi sort of way. It was, it's crap. Like, if it ever came on, I'd just be like, oh no, it's so embarrassing. But that was kind of the start for me, and then towards the end I started writing a bit more, and we did this Queens of the Stone Age kind of like style track. It's mixed between that and the Zootons called Lonely Old Town, and again it was very feel sorry for myself, load of old shit, really.
Life is painful.
Yeah, and then I started playing some acoustic gigs on my own. And I wrote this track called Amputine, and I played it.
Nice.
And the lyrics in the chorus was something like, it's so awful. This is such a step back.
Lyrical Confessions, a new segment on the Dukey Radio Show featuring Michael Webster.
It was, I've been trying to squeeze my spots, but I ain't got no arms. I've been waiting for growing pains, but I ain't got no legs. I'm living a life in a chess piece hell or something like that.
And I've been trying to squeeze my spots, but I ain't got no arms.
shaped chess piece hell.
It was, you know, like as if he got no arms, you know. But I was playing this song at actually at a venue which is just up the road called Bar Lambs. They did an open mic night, and it's how I started to get confident. And I was playing, and obviously I played that song, and then there's some geezer in the crowd that's got no legs.
The law of averages.
And I didn't realise that, but all my mates were pissing themselves in the audience because they were just like...
Oh dear.
But apparently he liked it. So, you know, again, that tune was... I don't know. I was not, and I don't even claim to be now, a very good songwriter. I was just learning what to do. I didn't know what to do. Again, it was the same situation that I kind of found myself in after Baddies, really. When Ingerica finished, I was like, what am I going to do? But I didn't have any ability then. I did on bass, but I wasn't a songwriter. And I was like, well, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something. And I just was like, right, well, what am I going to do? So just started demoing stuff, 4-track every night after work, play, do this. I had a real bad time because I split up with a girl at the time and had an awful holiday at Benicassim and got all my stuff nicked. And I'd started a job in a call centre.
Oh.
And it almost took almost took that misery for me to be like, right, you know what? And I got myself sorted out. I started going to the gym. I got my head right. I started writing. I moved out with my friends. I got my life together. And that's when Baddies started to really happen, because I'd put the time in and was literally just devoting my time to, like, you know, trying to feel good and doing things that I enjoyed and spend time with myself. And then once Baddies started happening...
I can understand your gestation as a songwriter and as a vocalist doing, well, especially doing those open mic nights with just you and a guitar. How did Michael Webster, the guitarist, develop? Because you have a really, really distinctive guitar sound and playing style, and it's really up front on all the recordings you've done.
Well, I guess really through... lack of ability, really, like genuinely, I love a lot of post-punk records, and one of my favourite guitarists genuinely is Andy Gill from
Gang of Four. Absolutely.
That, just the rhythms, just the dun, 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 dun. And again, Geordie from Killing Joke. Was a later kind of influence of mine. But just that, it's the rhythmical side of it. Vocal, I've always been interested in rhythms and drum patterns and stuff like that. And so if you can follow that with a guitar, it's that, and it's not really anything that's like, you know, I'm always minor chords most of the time. There's not really too much major going on.
Because you're sad.
Yeah, because I'm sad. But because it sounds cooler and it's more interesting chord progressions, I don't think about what the name is of the chord that I'm technically supposed to be playing.
So you're playing non-standard inversions and suspended chords.
Yeah, just whatever sounds right. Just whatever I think sounds right and what the limitations of my ability allow me to do. So it is that a lot of the time, and on record I'll maybe do a couple of overdubs. There's normally one guitar part's written and there'll be an accompanying part, they're written in tandem, so I'll get that down and then I'll go, right, well, what sound good over that, and just experiment with different notes that sound right with that. and then you work it out afterwards. And so it's not really. Again, so there are some tracks on the Bait album where I literally use one finger, and it's a very lazy way of doing it, but it works.
That's the most important thing. Chemistry and being appropriate. A lot of guitar players aren't. So what if you can play 1,000 notes at once? Often taste goes out the window, and on both of those Baddies albums and Bait, all the guitar parts genuinely, fill the space the way that they should, and sing for the supper or ring for the supper.
Yeah.
And that's, as a guitar player, that's everything that you want. And also keeping the energy and the parts interesting throughout a song is a skill in itself, and something that Andy Gill does beautifully, and Geordie, and two guitar players who, although are highly regarded in some circles, aren't the classic influences. I'm a huge fan, so I think that's why I love your guitar playing. To be honest, sometimes all you need is one finger. It's
attitude, and it is. I mean, I've met Andy Gill actually. I was years ago. Oddly, I played bass with Gang of Four for this gig that they did They did 3 songs, and he did say this. He said he felt as though everybody, when that resurgence of UK indie was, rock and roll was coming back, that everybody was ripping him off. And I think he was talking about like Block Party and people like that. Future Heads who he produced the first EP for. Yeah, and he felt as though he and I just thought, well, do you know what? Why are you looking at it like that? In hindsight, I look at it and I just think that's a wrong way to look at it.
Be proud of the legacy.
Bitterness is exactly. Yeah. Just be like, you know what? People want to play like you because you're a great guitarist.
Yeah.
Not anything else. It's not anything else. And he was a really nice guy, and I really enjoyed playing with him. It was a fantastic opportunity. I had a bit of a joke with him and stuff, and it was good, but I've not seen him ever since, and that's that, I mean,
he has a bit of a reputation, and no doubt you know the Red Hot Chili Peppers story. He was involved in producing their first album.
Really? They were big fans of Gang of Four, weren't they?
Yes. I mean, you can hear Gang of Four in a big way in early Red Hot Chili Peppers. And in the days where labels had budgets, and budgets enabled producers to be called in, he was flown over to LA, and Flea and Anthony Kiedis were very excited to have somebody who they held in high regard to be producing them, and it didn't work out very well, and the relationship was punctuated by the fact that they put a bunch of poo in a bag, set it alight, and knocked on his door, so they didn't get on.
Really?
Some of it may have been an Anglo-American cultural clash. Anglo-American Australian, to be fair, Flea's Aussie-born. Not a lot of people know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's spent a lot of time in Australia. I mean, he only moved to the States as maybe 11 or 12. So he has a lot of good day mate in him.
He's got a very American accent.
Dude, yeah, I think it's survival. I think probably it's cool being Australian on the first day when you're at the new kid in school, but by day 5 you're going to get your ass kicked. So I do think there's some survival techniques that were employed. Andy Gill had a bit of a reputation for being quite morose and dark then, possibly for the same reason that you'd experienced, where clearly you can hear a lot of Gang of Four in Red Hot Chili Peppers, and quite famously, Gang of Four were not big earners in the music industry.
No.
And possibly there's some bitterness from that. But I agree, bitterness is not a good look or a good feeling. I said it earlier, and I'll say it again. And ultimately, he was probably being remunerated quite nicely by Team Red Hot Chili Peppers at the time, but they didn't get on well, and that ended that particular relationship. It's interesting that you've had an experience, and Red Hot Chili Peppers had an experience, and perhaps these were just 2 moments in his career where he was not at his freshest.
I mean, the thing is that, I don't know, Gang of Four has continued to carry on, sorry. not go, but just carry on. And yet he's the only surviving member, and I think that says a lot. I think that says that he does hold himself in very, very high regard, that he is Gang of Four, and that's what I would never want to do. I'm like, because I think John King had a massive part of that. I think he's a great vocalist. That's another reference in another Baddies song, actually, thinking about it.
Which song is
Block It Out, which was the B-side to Battleships.
£2 coins for a £2 coin. A change will do you good. John King, 1979, the man sang in a band that everybody copied, everybody copied, everybody.
It's a good tune, actually. It should have been on the album, I think. But I was a bit like, no, I'm not putting any B-sides on the album. I'm going to just write loads of new ones.
You had the B-side section in the final gig, didn't you?
Yes.
And that was my first exposure to it. I was with a dear friend of mine, Welshie, who was there, and he was kind of telling me, that's the B-side.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I heard it. And then it was played to me afterwards, but I didn't hear the line. But Mr. King, super important.
He was brilliant. I mean, when I went to do that session with him, and this goes to show what sort of ended up happening. You say they didn't make any money, but he's got his own. I can't remember what business it was, but I had to go and rehearse with him in his lunch hour whilst he was a manager of some business in London.
Right.
And he sort of came in, did a quick vocal thing, and then fucked off again. And then obviously they've fallen out since, and so them two were the surviving members, and that's fair enough. They were the main guys. But, the bass player was really important in that band as well. The whole rhythms, the drums, the whole thing. But you just like let it go when it's gone. I think you've got to let it go and move on and do other stuff. And just his comments there, what Andy made to me, maybe kind of do hint that there is a little bit of bitterness and there is a little bit of an ego thing going on, but I don't really know the guy, to be honest. I think I've got his number in my phone. I've never rung it, and if I did, it'd be a bit weird. He would never remember who I am. Do you know what I mean? Again,
Maybe he was having a not so fresh feeling 2 times in his life, but I've heard a couple of other stories, to be fair. Which is a real shame. You're Andy Gill. Be happy with that.
I mean,
I'd love to wake up and know that I produced that.
The main man, but I think maybe it's one of them things that he wishes that he was still producing that and he was still in that time, but you can't turn back time. You gotta keep moving forward. If sharks stop swimming, they fucking drown. Is that right?
Yes.
So they have to keep swimming.
But I believe there's one variety of shark in which they hibernate near the shelf, the ocean shelf, and they're able to survive on the muck that's floating around. So maybe that's
shark.
what Andy Gill's doing. I need to find out what shark that is.
Shark! 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 Shark!
Your fellow baddies. Obviously, we know about the whereabouts of Jim.
Yeah.
What about the rest of the gang?
Well, so
Simon and
Danny. So Danny, we stayed in touch. He kind of put his bass down. Beautiful bass, Rickenbacker, like yours. But cherry red one.
Great bass player. Got energy, drive, and just... There are very few bass players that make me want to pick up the bass and kind of play right there and then. He's one of them.
The thing is with Danny is he's fucking cool. He looks cool. He was a little bit older than us, and I think some people were like, "Oh, who's the old guy in the band?" But he looked like Peter Hook and Peter Sutcliffe mixed together, and because he had that big black beard, and he just looked, and he was bigger than all of us, and he just looked like this towering figure of bass volcano, that was just on stage and great, and a great laugh as well, great comrade to have. Anyway, when we split, he put his bass down, took up film photography, and he's produced some absolutely amazing images. He's done a few different kind of pieces, if you like, or is it called a piece or projects? One is called like Nighttime, I think, and he's shooting. He doesn't shoot people, but he goes out in the middle of the night. It's quite dodgy with his camera and a long coat, and he shoots like really desolate places that. So you're getting an image of a place that you wouldn't normally see. You'd normally used to see people around it or cars there and all this stuff, but it looks incredible, like what he does. And
he could probably have a really long exposure as well, which you wouldn't be able to do if there's loads of people moving about. So it's going to capture all sorts of subtleties that would be difficult to get otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, he's incredible, and he's kind of his patience. He's a very patient man. Because it's all film. He uses old cameras, old Nikon cameras. He uses old stock film. So it's very, very niche, very kind of, you've got to be a real kind of film, like, or camera buff or whatever it's called. Was it boffin?
Aficionado.
Like, yeah.
He's keeping it old school and then some.
Yeah, he is very old school. And certainly that way of working is not broken. And I think it, you know, when you see things shot on film, there is a certain kind of like depth that you don't get on in digital. So he does that. And anyway, so with Danny, we started collaborating again with it, but in a completely different way. And he said, look, I'd like to do some shots for Bait. And I was like, yeah. At the time, we wasn't even going to say who was in the band. We was going to keep it completely like enigmatic and not even say whether I was in it or who was in it. And so I just basically said to him, let's just do some shots. I don't want to do traditional band shots. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Let's work out some images in our mind, what we think's right. And so we collaborated, and we've done 4 different shoots. One was the album cover, which was the worms in my hand, which is shot down on Southend, so Westcliff Beach. There's another one that we did, which was a press shot of we called that one "I'm Still Here," and it was me in the water, almost like supposed to be a crocodile, basically, but I'm not. And it's a bit almost like Apocalypse Now, but it's all done on like infrared film.
Right.
So, and we had to paint my hair white, so it came up in, and it's very arty sort of stuff, you know. It's great to collaborate, and he's incredible. He does it. You only get like 20 shots, 30 shots, whatever, and he does that. We did another one with a smashed iPhone for Hate One Another, Love Your Selfie, and that was kind of like where we had to get the image of me on the camera, but it was obscured by the smashed screen. But you could see me slightly, and it was, you know, again, these are just like, and then another idea where we said, right, well, Waspies might be another thing we're going to do. That's off the Bait album. And so we got any ideas, and we remembered that, you remember I don't remember it actually at the time, but I have seen it, the whole Humphrey still in the milk sort of thing. He had that red and white straw.
Yes.
Watch out, there's a Humphrey about. So we had an idea that what about if we had like a whole glass full of dead wasps, but with a Humphrey straw coming out the top of it, for no real reason, to be honest.
Apart from being an exercise in achieving something that's very difficult to do.
Yeah, and so we did that one as well.
Where did you get the wasps?
Off of Etsy. They're actually Bulgarian bees. Look at
I'm deeply hurt that you didn't buy British.
Yeah, I couldn't get them.
You know, so even the wasp jobs, they're being taken over by the Bulgarian bees.
So we spoke to some pest control people to see where we could get them, and unfortunately, it was just outside wasp season. They were all, you know, dead and gone away somewhere, you know, emigrated or whatever it is they do, or just died or whatever. So you wouldn't get them. But if it was a bit later, that they started to come back. But anyway, like this whole thing is like just about, you know, Bait isn't just about the music. It's about coming up with creative ideas, and it is an art project, I guess, in a way. And it's great to collaborate with Danny through his newfound talent which he's got. He's an incredibly talented guy, great guitarist, amazing bass player, even better photographer in my opinion now. And I hope that it just sort of like, you know, carries on for him. And Simon,
a mysterious and decidedly enigmatic character. He's the only member of Baddies I said hello to but never had a chat with, and always seemed a little bit detached from the band. So kind of oozed a boy next door charm. With a slightly demonic Hitler Youth kind of vibe as well.
Absolutely, yeah, he has actually. I can get that Hitler Youth thing for sure.
Simon is the one person I haven't really got an opinion of. Have you? Do you know him?
I do know. I think I know him. Or maybe I did. I don't know. I mean, I think that like Simon is what Simon was in Baddies was the record collection.
Right.
He. I mean, I'm into music massively, but he knows a lot. He loves different genres of music. He's got a great music collection. And the weird thing is, I don't see him that much anymore. And he's a shame, but, you know, people move in different directions and all that stuff. But what we've still got is that if he hears something that he likes, he still just posts it on my Facebook wall or texts it to me. So although we're not like, oh, you know, hey man, how's it going and all that stuff, through music, we still have a relationship. And he... Actually, when we was getting Baddies together, he was my soundboard. He introduced me to a lot of different music. Yeah, he actually introduced me to Super Furry Animals. I didn't know too much of their stuff, and he was a huge fan. And he bought me their greatest hits. I think it's called Songbook, and a massive influence on me because I was still learning how to write songs. I'm still learning now, but you know, they were a band that I just connected with, and I just thought, yeah, these are great. And it was through him, and he's still doing that from afar, which is weird, but great as well.
In a way, keeping a relationship through kind of banal communication is what it is, and he's bypassing that and just engaging with you through musical links.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, you know, the Transformers films. Not great, but it's the first thing that comes to mind, where the cars can only communicate with whatever is being broadcast through car stereos. And Simon does that through musical links. It's quite sweet. He feels duty bound to post something on your wall. It means that you're in his thoughts. And who needs communication when, hey, check out this track by... You know, Super Furry Animals.
It's crazy. I mean, you know, there is. I've got a massive respect for Simon because of that. I you know, really was almost jealous of his musical knowledge, and he was always really, really encouraging. When we were getting the band together throughout, and almost actually, I think Luke replaced him.
Right. It's interesting. So that role, you had a void without somebody with those attributes in it, and then Luke took that baton.
And it wasn't to say that the others weren't supportive, because they were all like together. We worked really well together, but that was just his role, was just to kind of, you know, just to bat ideas off of. You know, often if I had an idea, I would probably go to Simon first. What do you think? Get his approval, get him on side, and then sort of go round like that, you know. And it was. For that reason, I don't think Baddies would work without him at all. I don't think it would work without. I think every member needs to be there. I really do.
Absolutely. 100%. You couldn't do an Andy Gill and go out as, you know, hi, it's Michael Webster's Baddies.
No, I mean, I would refuse to do it because, as well, like the whole fact, we wore a uniform, you know, it was throughout we wore a uniform. And that initially came from the fact that me and Jim were twins. And were dressed in the same clothes when we were kids, and we thought, well, let's fucking use what we've got. You know, we're born as twins, let's be twins or whatever. And then we thought, well, why don't we all wear the same then, and it became very sort of totalitarian, you know, almost Devo like, and craft work, the Hives, all that stuff. Maybe it was done. Maybe in hindsight, did we need to do it? I think, fuck it, yeah, it worked. You know, at the time, it was cool. Just wouldn't do that again. I think it's kind of, there's something that's a little bit contrived about it. And I think that, you know, what Baddies is he's very, very stripped back, and it's almost like I've just taken my fucking skin off and just been like, this is it. This is what I am. This is what I feel. This is what I've been going through. You know, I even talk about on that album about being a twin, which I don't really ever address, to be honest. I don't really sort of talk about that. I mean, the thing is that when you are a twin, you are forced to share when you are a kid. And some people like love that whole thing of that. But when I was a kid, you know, you'd be bought like something that you could play together, a game, a little. I remember we was bought a little like very miniature pool table once. Crap, it was, but that was between us, and it was like, well, why haven't we got a present each? And that's so ungrateful. But when you're that age, you don't understand that. You're just like, I want my individuality. I want to be me. I don't want to be like come as a package. I am myself. And so as soon as we could get out of that, we sort of did for our whole teenage years and into early 20s. And so it's kind of ironic that we then went into a band where we wore the same clothes and embraced the whole twin thing and all that.
In Paint the City, is it Simon that does the vocal outro in that?
Yes, he does.
How did that come about? It's really, really effective. It's great having a different voice just at the tail end, and a slightly vulnerable voice at that.
Right, this is the thing. When we first started the band, right, so those demos I was talking about when I finished in Gerica and I was doing 4-track demos, he helped me do them. He was in another band at the time called For Shoulder Crisis, and he was the lead singer of that band. Anyway, we become closer and closer friends, and as well as doing For Shoulder Crisis and singing in that, he joined what became Baddies, but he was playing guitar. And then it wasn't that I was going to sing, because I'd never sung in a band. It wasn't laid out, and in the end it was like, well, you know, I said, well, I think you should sing some songs and I should sing some songs and stuff, and it just worked out that I did it and that he didn't, but I was always a massive fan of his voice. He was almost like that kind of, he's got that depth to his voice and that croony kind of thing going on that we just didn't use enough in the first album. And the thing is that there were certain sections when we were playing as a band, I think he would just start singing at certain points, and I loved that about him, that he was just like, he would just come in and do stuff, and I was just like, that's what I wanted. Almost like that Super Furry Animals thing where you got like Gruff Reese, and I can't remember the other guy's name, it begins with a B. The other guitarist, he sings some songs, he sings some a bit, you know, not quite Lennon and McCartney, but just a bit here and there. There's more personalities coming out. And what happened was we took some influence of that at the end of Paint the City, because he just sings, and it's a great tail off. Then he sings a lot more throughout Build. I think there's sections where he's singing on his own even at certain bits. And if you listen again, I mean, I haven't listened to. I might listen to Build. Actually,
it's a really good album.
I might listen to it again.
I recommend it.
This I don't know, maybe not today, but I might listen to it, you know, and just have a bit of a recollect, because I think I went through one stage of just listening to it all the time, and then I haven't listened to it for years now, and I'd like to kind of listen back to those sections, what he did, because I can't remember. But he's a very, very great vocalist, and that was why I wanted him in the band. It was because for his vocals, really, more than anything. You know, he's a good guitarist as well. He's got a very kind of, you know, almost like hammer-fisted way of playing, you know, and he used to break strings all the time because he sort of play across the guitar, but it was cool because it worked that way, and he was just like, yeah, fucking, you know, go for it. And yeah, I would like to see him again.
Rewind.
Just one thing that I think that ties anything that I've been involved in writing with is that there's been great times, but there has always been a struggle with it. And I think it's important to embrace that struggle that's there, because I think it does actually fuel your creativity, content-wise, and your kind of ambition to want to do it. And I found myself at the bottom of that bucket many, many times, probably 3 times now. And, you know, I think I'll always crawl out of it. I think every time I'll always crawl out of it. And I said once that I wouldn't continue doing it all forever, but I think I probably will.
If you were to give it up, it would mean that you would have become a pillock.
Yep. Absolutely.
Michael, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here on the Dukey Radio Show.
Thanks.
Well, that is indeed your lot. Michael Webster, what a lovely, lovely guy. And I have to say, in the 4 hours that we spent together, we laughed, we shared some really intense goings on in our respective lives, and hopefully, in its edited form, all of that goodness and intensity is captured and does our afternoon some justice. You've been listening to our interview with Michael Webster. My name is Dukey and I've been your host. Until next time, may the worst of tomorrow be the best of yesterday. Now it's time for me to go and pop my weasel. Thanks for listening.
Half a pound of tuppenny rice, half a pound of treacle. That's the way the money goes. Pop goes the weasel.
Facebook. Click on your mouse to our Facebook page. Facebook. It's easy to find, it will not take an age. Facebook. www.facebook.com/The Dukey Radio Show, The Dukey Radio Show. The thin white Dukey is right. Click your way to the Dukey Radio Show Facebook page, www.facebook.com/The Dukey Radio Show. The Dukey Radio Show, The Dukey Radio Show. Let's see what Slutty Sue is doing in her house. In her house.
I like to clean.
Let's see what Slutty Sue is doing in her house. In her house.
I love Charlie Sheen.
Let's see what Slutty Sue is doing in her house. In her house.
Are you done with those mugs?
To a mere pedestrian or uninitiated local, Penge may appear to be an unremarkable suburb of London, neither city nor country, neither posh nor destitute. But in this quiet enclave in the southeastern quarter of our nation's capital is an Art Deco semi-detached house owned and occupied by a North American transplant to Blighty named Slutty Sue. She likes to clean. I popped into Slutty Sue's pristine abode and asked, Slutty Sue, what have you been up to?
Recently, Dukey, I've been so busy on all fours, scrubbing away at my oven because it was so filthy. Then I just decided to get a new one of those slide and hide ones, with a door that disappears when you open up. The engineer who installed it was so polite, showing me how easy it was to
pull it out and slide it back in again. So I've mostly been doing lots of cooking lately because my new oven is too clean, and like I told the engineer, I prefer it dirty.
Bros.
Leather.
Proclaimers.
Glasses.
The Craze.
Evil.